Hello fellow brawlers, I'm Karos Time and it is time to brawl. I don't know why I did it like that. Today we're going to be talking about the balance changes that Brawl Stars needs the most, and we're going to start off by talking about Crow, okay? We're also going to talk about what I think the balance changes need to happen. Before we get started though, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more future Brawl Stars content. You know you want to. Okay guys, Crow. OP right now? What do you think? You think he's OP? I think he's OP. I think he's way too strong right now. He has extremely high burst damage if you get anywhere close to him. If he lands on you, you're like, well, I guess that's GG. I'm a game over for me. He has really high damage. He offers so much control in being able to keep people poisoned and keep people back. I can't think of any times in the past where Crow really needed to be buffed. I think he did receive a buff recently, but a lot of brawlers kind of received buffs the last time they did balance changes, so I don't know, we'll see. He offers a lot of great control. He's also really fast. He does have one weakness, and that one weakness is that he has really low HP. If you can get close to Crow, if you can deal damage to Crow, you can take Crow out really quickly. The problem is that his offense is so strong right now that it's almost impossible for you to get close to him unless you're playing one of the other brawlers that are really overpowered right now. And that's where we come to the nerfs that I think the Crow needs. First suggestion, make it easier to take advantage of his low HP by decreasing the damage dealt by his daggers and by the poison by about 10%. If you decrease his damage, then you're going to have a little bit more survivability, be able to get closer up to him and hopefully be able to deal some damage and take him out. And then there's another possible nerf that I think might be worth looking at, and that is increasing the spread of his 3 daggers so that it's harder to burst damage with him. So rather than it being a shot like this, kind of like maybe like that, or somewhere in the middle or something like that. That way, in order for him to do burst damage, he has to be really close up. And at that point, you're most likely going to be able to deal some damage to be able to take advantage of his low HP and take him out. Up next, we got Ricochet. Ricochet is so strong right now. Holy cow. He has an extremely long range. His super reaches, even just like not bounced off anything, like it reaches insanely far and covers so much of the map that it's really hard to dodge him. On top of that, his bounce shots are nearly impossible to dodge, especially if you're going down like some type of a corridor or something like that. That being said, I do think there are some nerfs that we could do. What my first suggestion is to decrease the width of his shots rather than it doing this much. Doing it like this much, like by 15% or something like that. That was exactly 15%. I don't know if you guys caught that. I'm just kidding. But another idea is to also possibly decrease the length of his super. The reason why I suggest this is because right now, Ricochet is kind of just like a copycat of Colt. Like, there's not really anything to distinguish the two of them other than the fact that Ricochet's shots do bounce a little bit further and do a little bit more damage if you bounce them off the walls. But that's kind of weird, and in a lot of situations they're pretty similar. So decreasing the length of his super could help with that. Another way to possibly an alternate nerf to separate him from Colt is to increase his reload time by 20%. Colt has a really fast reload speed because he's got 2 guns. Ricochet's got 1 gun that shoots out bouncy balls. I feel like it makes sense for him to have a higher reload speed. Not that everything has to make complete sense. I oftentimes just don't even make sense. But I think that would help distinguish him from Colt and also give him some type of a nerf that would make him a little bit less oppressive right now. Next is Colt. Colt, really fast. He also does tons of damage with auto aim, especially if he's close up. Shots are really wide and nearly impossible to dodge if you're up close. And if you're good with Colt, you just get close to somebody, you spam that auto aim button, and then you just like mirror where they're walking. You walk the exact same way that they're walking, and you can get all shots off with Colt. And if you do that, people get taken out so quickly. It's insane. So my first suggestion would honestly be to decrease his damage by 10%, maybe even 20%. That's just an idea. That might be way too much. But to also decrease the width of his shots so that they're not landing so frequently. Next, we have Dynamite on the nerf list. Dynamite does so much damage, and his super is going to blow your socks off if you get anywhere close to him with almost zero aiming effort on the Dynamite player's part. It's ridiculous. Like you build up your super, and then as soon as somebody's like anywhere within range, you just like boom, super. You just tap it. Like that's all you do. You tap it, it goes out, flies at them, blasts them out of the park, does tons of damage. Will you be able to do better if you're manually aiming with Dynamite? Right now, I would argue no. which I don't like that. He also throws really over walls, are really hard to get to, so some things I think could really help out with that. To decrease his regular attack damage by about 10%, and then to decrease the super projectile speed by about 10%. That way he's not offering so much burst, and it should be a little bit easier to get a little bit closer to him without getting taken out so quickly. Now let's go ahead and talk about the buff list here, okay? So first of all, you probably guessed it, the brawler that probably needs a buff the most, Mortis. It is so hard for Mortis to get anywhere near anybody without getting taken out because his HP isn't actually that great, and a lot of times he typically actually has to use a shot to get anywhere close to somebody. So he gets to you by using a shot, and then he only has 2 swipes left, or maybe even only 1, and it makes it really hard for him to take anybody out without dying. Not to mention the fact that he actually does little damage for the effort that is required for you to actually get to somebody. Now, I will say that Mortis is really difficult to balance because you want to make him strong enough that he's usable, but you don't want to make him so strong that he becomes completely overpowered in Brawl Ball, because if that happens, that's rough. So my suggestion is to increase his HP by about 10%, make it a little bit easier for him to get closer to people, and then also to increase his damage by about 10%. That way, if he uses 1 shot to get closer to somebody, then it's not as detrimental to him because he's going to be able to still deal damage with the shots that he's able to actually use against people. Also, that's kind of like how Mortis works out. He's like a close range assassin. Like, you want him to be able to get up in there, take people out, and then get out. Right now, with auto aim, basically people being able to spam that shot so that they're able to almost always guarantee shots on him, it's really hard for him to do that. Up next, we're going to talk about Poco. Now, Poco is interesting. You may have noticed from the last tier list that he was actually not on the tier list at all in any game mode, including Gem Grab. Which is the game mode where I feel like he deserves a spot the most. The reason why is because right now we are in a meta where people just die so quickly. There's no like longevity to actually staying in the map. Like you get in there, and if you get out of positioning at all, then all of a sudden you're taken out like that. And because of that, Poco doesn't have the ability to actually help keep you alive, because you'll get taken out so quickly. With that, my suggestion is actually to make his super charge up 10 to 20% faster than it used to. The reason why is because then he's going to be able to use his super more frequently, and more likely he's actually going to be able to help out than not be able to help out. Maybe help keep people back in that didn't get taken out, so that they're not having to sit back and like wait, be able to do that more frequently. I think that could help Poco a lot. Now let's go ahead and talk about Bull and El Primo. Now El Primo and Bull used to be very oppressive in the meta before the meta that we're facing right now. If you guys remember, before the width of all the shots like increased and everybody was moving faster and things like that, El Primo and Bull, they just wrecked things, and it was super frustrating. You could hardly play any brawler that was at long range at all because of it. I don't actually think that they need any type of a buff right now, even though they do struggle. I think that once Crow, Ricochet, Colt, and Dynamite get some type of a nerf, then I think that these guys are going to feel just fine. Okay guys, now we've talked about the buff list, we've talked about the nerf list. Now we're going to talk about something completely different regarding the actual balance of the game, and that is survivability. For those of you guys that remember, we're playing Brawl Stars before a few balance changes ago, the survivability of brawlers were actually pretty good. You could throw some shots off at an enemy brawler, they could throw some shots off at you, and as long as you were really careful about falling back in time, you were actually able to survive and actually stay in the game for a longer period of time. This led to really dynamic gameplay that was a ton of fun and didn't feel as punishing as the current survivability is right now. As survivability is right now, if you get yourself into a position where enemy brawlers can actually target you, you can basically say goodbye to your brawler because you're gonna get taken out almost instantly. Now this is kind of fun, it adds to like the fast-pacedness of the game and like makes things kind of exciting, but it also makes the game feel extremely punishing in my opinion, because if you get slightly out of position, boom, you're out of there. I think the best example of this right now is Gem Grab, where if there are 10 gems out on the field, then basically what happens is one brawler grabs that last gem, they're going for the countdown, but because they had to outstretch themselves, get to that last gem, that typically in a lot of situations will actually put them into a poor position where the enemy team is going to be able to take them out. So they go for that last gem, the enemy team immediately takes them out, and then one of their teammates goes in and goes for that gem, that pile pile of gems to try and start the countdown. Well, because Team B is now going for that gem and are out of position, Team A takes them out and then goes for the gems, and then Team B takes Team A out, and then Team A goes in and takes Team B out, until eventually you have a massive pile of gems right in the center, and it's extremely frustrating. Everybody's dying. It makes you feel like you have no control of the game, and that's true for both sides of the map, and that is a result of brawlers with really low survivability. With all this being said, I think that there is a great and easy way for Supercell to actually increase the survivability of the brawlers. They increase the overall speed of all of the brawlers, and they increase the overall offense of all of the brawlers by increasing the size and width of all of the shots, as well as increasing the damage. There's one key missing to the triangle of balance in Brawl Stars, and that is to increase defense. An easy way for them to do this is to buff almost all of the brawlers in the game. Some should be buffed a lot more than others, and some should be buffed a little bit less. But by increasing the actual defense of all of the brawlers in the game, the balance is still level. Like, all of the different brawlers are going to be fairly equal and equivalent to each other, and so you're not going to have to worry about that. But now the survivability has actually increased, which means that you're going to be able to stay on the field a little bit longer. You're going to be able to get out of position without it feeling so punishing, and maybe even be a little bit more aggressive to your opponents and maybe push them out of position or something like that. I know it kind of sounds like I'm yelling. I don't know why I'm doing that, but I'm not yelling. I just really like the gameplay. I think it's a ton of fun, and I think that survivability is something that really needs to be improved in the game. So those are my own 2 cents. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about it. Do you think that survivability is good right now, or do you think that we should increase the survivability of Brawl Stars? Anyways, guys, let me know what you thought about this video. Survivability, the buff list, the nerf list. Was anybody missing on these two? Do you think I was too harsh on some of the brawlers? Too lenient towards some of the brawlers? Let me know, guys. For now, this is Kairos time ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars.